I've been trying to make this video a few times, and I went and watched the documentary, just kind of get caught up to speed again, just so I had all my history right, so to speak. I'm going to start off by reading just the description of the airplane. Okay, Canada made its own contribution to the world of aviation from its own CF-105 two-seat twin-jet high-altitude long-range interceptor. The Arrow had approximately a thrust of 60,000 pounds and was equipped with the Orenda Iroquois engines with afterburners. During test flights, the Arrow was equipped with the J-25 engines, while the Orenda's Iroquois were further developed on the B-47 testbed. The Arrow exceeded the maximum speeds of Mach 2 and had tremendous climb rate at all weights. Its thrust weight was 1-to-1. It's only surpassed by the VTOL. I'm not too sure what's the VTOL. Able to intercept and destroy enemy planes at 75,000 feet. The Arrow has the shape of a delta wingspan, trailing edges, reduced drag at high speeds. Guided missiles were its intended armament. Now the thing is the Arrow program, as we know, never got to see the full shine. The full shine. It never got to see the whole deal. But it did fly, and trying to get that. It did get to fly. It did get to. Here we go. It did get to do a lot of great things with it. Some of the stuff I'm going to talk about is just trying to find a spot where I can get good lighting here. I'm not a very good historian, am I? But anyway, it got to fly. RL-201 was the first one to fly. In fact, on the maiden flight, out of a checklist of about 4,000 things, only 2 switches gave them any sort of problems. In fact, the pilot said he didn't remember ever test flying an airplane that had so few problems. It was almost a perfect test flight. The Bombay, something interesting technology-wise, while they were deciding what kind of weapon system was going to go into it, they said, okay, well, here's what we'll do. We'll have a dropout Bombay, and then, whatever you decide on after, we'll put it, we'll make a Bombay that can just slap in there. Dude, so that gave versatility to the aircraft. It was going to be designed to target up to 12, track up to 12 aircraft at a time, and target up to fire upon 8 at a time. So this thing would have been able to shoot 8 missiles at 8 different bombers at once if they were within range of the missiles, which is probably about the kill range was probably about 8 kilometers. At the time, that would have been like shooting to the other side of the moon. Again, the technology today, okay, well, they can make anything. There's more technology in the phone, my cell phone, that's making this video rather than the actual video itself, or the airplane itself, but technology, right? This was a very powerful radar for what it was. And the fact that everything was on board. I mean, this was a long-range interceptor in ferry mode. Don't know the actual numbers of how far of a range it had. I know internally it carried about 2,900 gallons of fuel. In an intercept mode, kind of like just rocket up, meet the bombers. Probably shorter range, like 300-400 miles. But again, that's at 75,000 feet. You're gonna burn a lot of fuel to get up there. It had afterburners. It was able to replace the CF-100, and it was superior to the Voodoo CF-101 that actually replaced it. Even still to this day, there's not a lot of airplanes that could accomplish what this thing accomplished, just in performance. It had a lot of wing area, and it was a very stable airframe, and that's what gave it that kind of go fast Canuck Rogers feel to it. It wasn't a dogfighter; it was an interceptor, meaning go up, meet the bombers, shoot them down. But politics being what they were, and the advent of nuclear missiles and faster bombers, higher bombers, all that stuff kind of, and just bad, business management, and of course, funding. They were well over budget, and there was a bunch of factors that played into scrapping the Arrow. But the biggest one was probably egos and arrogance on behalf of politicians and people in charge of the company. So, I think that the airplane was probably more scrapped on personal grudge than it was on. I mean, it's controversial why it was actually scrapped, because they would have gotten the money back in the taxes. They would have gotten the money back. Well, the money was being spent in Canada, and one of the workers, she said it best. Buy Canadian. Buy Canadian, and that that was pride. These people worked on this airplane with pride, and the fact that the government went through great lengths to scrap every shred of evidence that this thing ever even existed. Just kind of shows you how devious, some politicians are. So that was personal. Like, I mean, okay, you scrap the program, but you don't necessarily have to junk everything, and more importantly, you don't go out of your way to hide everything. Saying, okay, all video footage, because people didn't, the people that opposed it, they knew it was a state-of-the-art airplanes. Canada had realized its potential was, going somewhere. This was a world-leading airplane when it came out. And to today, performance-wise, like, I mean, at max takeoff weight, this thing can still outclimb a CF-18 at empty weight, almost, and it goes about 25,000 feet, 20 to 25,000 feet higher than what the CF-18 does. That said, I mean, the CF-18 is, much more superior in a lot of ways. It's more maneuverable, better visibility, yada, 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 newer radar, yada, yada, yada. But in its time, when we're just talking about sheer numbers of there's a lot of airplanes that would not have been able to keep up to it. So what its competitors have been, really? I mean, the CF-101 was kind of what replaced it. And we could have had, for the same price, we could have just had the Arrows, you know what I mean? Like, would it cost to cancel the program? And we've seen this with the Sikorsky helicopter scandal with the Liberals back in the 90s. The price it cost to scrap the helicopters is almost the same price as completing the over-budget program. But at least at the end of it, you get a product. Okay, you might have paid too much for it, but at least you get something. And that's kind of what happened here. So we got the Voodoos in replacement of what the Arrow was supposed to do, and then we bought it from the Americans. So again, I'm not slagging the Americans. This was all politics. So, but the Voodoo definitely did not have the capabilities of the Arrow in a lot of ways. Didn't have the payload capacity. Didn't have the climb rate. I mean, this thing was pretty outstanding for what it was. Long-range Arctic patrol. A lot of people don't realize, but not all. This was designed primarily as an interceptor, but it would have been a reconnaissance airplane, high-altitude reconnaissance airplane. Although nobody probably wants to touch on the subject, this thing was also going to be designed as a strike fighter, basically to a nuclear strike aircraft. That's the Cold War. That's what it was designed for. Some say the missiles. It also got replaced by the Bomark missile. Said, okay, well, the missiles are this, missiles are that. Make the airplane obsolete because it can't deal with the missiles. But the aircraft are still there, so, there's a lot of things that got it scrapped. But again, some of the things, it was technically a fly-by-wire airplane. The engines were on rails so they could slide out for quicker maintenance. The Orenda engines, although they were built, I don't really think they ever got tested to their full potential, were lighter and more powerful than the other engines, and this would have been incredible if we would have got it. And again, incomparable aircraft. What would have what would have competed against you? Well, in the kind of same time frame, on the Russian side, it would have been the MiG-25 is what this thing. If this would have entered service, that would have been probably the thing it would have had to have countered. Yes, the bombers of the Badgers and the Bears and stuff like that, but it would have eventually had to have been modified to deal with the MiG-25 Foxback. Although the MiG-25 could probably fly a little bit higher and definitely faster than what the Arrow could, if the Mach 3 version of this Arrow would have ever been, if it would have went into service, they probably would have went working on the Mach 3 version right away, or a few years after, just to keep up to the Russians. And in that case, it would have been easily able to not only intercept, but catch the MiG-25. That said, in its original variant, it would not catch the MiG-25. On the American side, what would be the earlier equivalent? Well, in superplanes, really, it would have been the early F-4 Phantoms. Now, the F-4 Phantoms, I think, would have probably done better down low in a dogfight, especially with the better visibility. But I think at higher altitudes, the Arrow, again, could climb with the Phantom, maybe even outclimb the Phantom because of that extra wing area and the more powerful engines. Remember, this is an 85-foot-long aircraft. It's big. At high altitudes, it was probably slightly more maneuverable. We'll never know for sure, but it probably could slightly outturn the F-4 Phantom at high altitudes, above 50,000 feet. The other thing is that where the F-4 Phantom eventually would, technology-wise, they would be, upgrade the Phantoms to the point where, this thing would have to, like the original would not be able to keep up to it, or not so much keep up to it, but, radar and stuff would be equal to it. But the radars were probably very, very similar because they were going to use that kind of technology in both airplanes. It just, again, we never got that far into it to find out for sure. But be able to track 12 airplanes and shoot down 8 at once, I mean, that was, and then a bomb bay that could drop out. Not only was it an enclosed bomb bay, but you could drop it out and insert different type of bomb bays to accommodate different types of weaponry. So you could get a whole host of weaponry from all kinds of countries, and you could have, what Canada lost was the technology stepping stone, is what we lost. A lot of people that worked on this airplane ended up working for NASA. But I would say the Avro Arrow was probably a crossbreed between, if a MiG-25 had a baby with an F-4 Phantom, I think he would have had an Avro Arrow. That's kind of the way I look at it. There were some things that the Phantom definitely was better at, because it had time to realize it hit service. And there was definitely things that the MiG-25 was better at. But I'm sure this thing would fly circles around the MiG-25, because the MiG-25, again, it was a heavier airplane. It didn't quite have as much wing area. It might have been a little bit faster and a little bit higher, but it wouldn't have, but the MiG-25 wasn't designed to dogfight. It was designed as a nuclear strike fighter. Range-wise, it's probably had a little bit more range than the Phantom, and again, at higher altitudes, it probably would do a bit better in a turn than the Phantom. But down low, I think the Phantom would probably have the advantage. Again, the wing area the Phantom doesn't have anywhere close to the wing area of the Arrow. That makes a big difference in how fast you can turn. Last notes, okay. Again, I mean, this is just my opinions and stuff like that. And again, I'm probably the last man to have ever sat in Arrow 206. It didn't get away, but the technology did go to the States and elsewhere on the planet. People, they lost their jobs. They had to go do something, right? But I've sat in the cockpit at the National Aviation Museum, because I used to work there, and it was an interesting thing. And I mean, the airplane could be flown. Technically, this was a fly-by-wire airplane. It was basically electric servos, but the back here you could fly the plane on, with knobs and dials. I mean, the airplane was very advanced for its time. It was incredibly advanced. So how would it compare to, say, I don't know, an F-35? Ooh. Okay, so here we go, CF-105 again. I've been trying to make this video a few times, and I went and watched the documentary, just kind of get caught up to speed again, just so I had all my history right, so to speak. I'm going to start off by reading just the description of the airplane. Okay, Canada made its own contribution to the world of aviation from its own CF-105 two-seat twin-jet high-altitude long-range interceptor. The Arrow had approximately a thrust of 60,000 pounds and was equipped with the Orenda Iroquois engines with afterburners. During test flights, the Arrow was equipped with the J-25 engines, while the Orenda's Iroquois were further developed on the B-47 testbed. The Arrow exceeded the maximum speeds of Mach 2 and had tremendous climb rate at all weights. Its thrust weight was 1-to-1. It's only surpassed by the VTOL. I'm not too sure what's the VTOL. Able to intercept and destroy enemy planes at 75,000 feet. The Arrow has the shape of a delta wingspan, trailing edges reduce drag at high speeds. Guided missiles were its intended armament. Now the thing is the Arrow program, as we know, never got to see the full shine. It never got to see the whole deal. But it did fly, and trying to get that. It did get to fly. It did get to. Here we go. It did get to do a lot of great things with it. Some of the stuff I'm going to talk about is just trying to find a spot where I can get good lighting here. I'm not a very good historian anyway. But anyway, it got to fly.